We're here with Sherry, who is our resident expert today on using 90% target language. Hi, Sherry. Welcome.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Thanks for being here. We're so excited to hear from you. Y'all, if you don't know, Sherry is the person to go to for you use 100% target language in your classroom, which is amazing. And that's what a lot of us are striving for. So where do you teach, or where did you teach, and what subjects did you teach, and what can you tell us about how you got started using so much target language?
I have taught all different places. I taught in Massachusetts at a super high level school. I taught inner city urban kids. I taught at a private Catholic school. I taught at a public school in New York. So I've taught all different populations. And just recently I taught a really tough class of kids. They were tricky. And then in terms of my target language use, I went to Middlebury College, and they have an immersion program there for graduate school. And so you speak only Spanish the whole time you're there for the 6 weeks, which is really cool. And it makes you realize how much better it is when your brain can be 100% in the target language. I kind of think of it as a light switch. I speak French and Spanish and English. And for me, it's just like switching a light on. And so to make that light switch work the best, you have to have all the connections going to that one switch. So if you have Spanish and English going on at the same time in your head, it creates two different pathways. So I like to stay 100% in the target language, so it creates that one pathway so students really start thinking in Spanish or in French.
That's a really different mindset than from what teachers, I think, are used to experiencing. And that's a really powerful way to think of it, too. So everybody here is going to be able to grab something really useful for their classroom, too, because you have worked with so many different groups of students. You've seen it all. And so I wanted to ask you today, what do you think would be one of the game changers, an activity that you've used in your classroom before that you remember thinking, this is awesome, I've got to use this every single time, something that worked with a lot of different students?
One activity that I love, and it makes Mondays really easy, is doing a weekend report. So every Monday when my kids come in, we spend probably 20, 30, sometimes the whole class just talking about what everybody did during the weekend. And we do it all in the target language. I have question words posted on the wall so they can see those. And I have them take the first few pages in their notebooks and write down anything I write on the board. So they have a running list of vocabulary. And I also give them participation cards, which is especially great with your students who are reluctant learners. So they each get a little square of colored paper, they write their name on it, and during the weekend report, they have to hand in all 3 cards. So one person will start and I'll say, ¿Qué hiciste este fin de semana? What did you do this weekend? And so that person starts and says something. And at the beginning of the year, you get 1-word answers. And then you keep building on it and growing and asking them more questions and teaching the class how to ask follow-up questions too. And I like it because it gets all different parts of language that are useful to them. These are the things they want to talk about. So you can start off and teach them fui. Where did you go? Fui al cine. Fui a la casa de mi amiga. And it's just a vocabulary word, and that's how we learn naturally. I'm raising my own kids bilingually, and I've seen it firsthand. Like, I don't say, oh, we can't talk about the past because you haven't learned it yet, so we can't talk about what we did yesterday. Or we're going to conjugate verbs. When did you ever conjugate a verb when you were learning your native language? Never. So we just build on that, and they learn useful expressions. Did you like it? Did you have fun? And so the kids ask follow-up questions, and they get to hand in a card every time they do that. And we just keep building on it throughout the year.
That's so great. And there's so many opportunities for personalization too. They can talk about whatever they want to. Right. You give them the building blocks, and then they can make it at their level with things that they're interested in.
Yes.
That's so exciting. And what do you think, especially building off of that, what are some ideas that you have for how students can speak to each other for keeping it in the target language? Because that's something we run into a lot of snags with usually. Especially, I teach all level 1 this year, and that's always my concern is how am I going to get them to talk to each other?
Right. It's really tricky to do that, but it's totally worth the effort. And I have actually a blog post about 20 ways to get your students speaking in the target language. So I think you're going to link to that at the end. But the 2 ones that are my favorites I like to put a really long word in Spanish on the board at the beginning of class. I like to use Tegucigalpa.
Oh,
and so I put that on the board and I say, okay, every time someone in class speaks English, we erase a letter of the word. And if you make it to the end of class with all of your letters, then there isn't any homework for the night. Or you can do some other reward, whatever reward you want to do, but just something that gets them working together as a class. So that's one idea. And you can also do it for yourself. Tell the students, okay, every time I speak in English, you guys get to erase one of my letters. And if by the end of the week or by the end of the day, however long you want to put, I've erased all my letters, then you guys don't have homework. So it holds you accountable too.
Oh, they probably love that. I bet you they're watching and waiting to see.
Yes. There's no cheating on that one.
No cheating.
No.
That's awesome. So going with that too, that's probably something that you have to do every single day in order to keep yourself and your students accountable. What are some essential routines that you think teachers need to do in order to keep focused in staying in immersion style, 90 to 100% target language?
Well, at the beginning of the year or whenever you want to start target language, because you don't have to start at the beginning, you could come in tomorrow and say, okay, we're speaking only in Spanish from now on. I show them an example where I walk out in the hallway and I speak in English to some imaginary student. Oh, hey, how's it going? What's up? Whatever lingo your kids like to use. And then as soon as I walk through the threshold of the door, I speak in Spanish. And so I show them that example of when you come in, it's all Spanish. When you go out, you speak whatever you want. So I do that to set it off right. And then sometimes I do it with a participation system. You get points if you're speaking in Spanish and you lose points if you're speaking in English, and I'll mark it down. And just sometimes having that clipboard and they see you marking makes them a little more responsible about it.
Yeah, I'm sure that keeps people like real laser focused on, oh, well, she's watching. I better know exactly what's going to happen here.
Yeah.
How do you think that teachers can make language more comprehensible to students? Because if that's all you're going to use, then they need to know what's going on.
Right. I like using a lot of photos because, a picture says 1,000 words. So I have a lot of visual flashcards, interactive notebook flashcards that have a photo on one side and the word in Spanish on the other side, and students can tape them directly into their notebooks. And so it creates rows that they can flip and write underneath. And I really like that because, first of all, they're seeing only Spanish. So they're creating that straight connection, the light bulb connection. And also, it's a reference they have throughout the year. Oh, my cat's going to visit us.
Cat.
She sits by me every day. So they can use it as a reference throughout the year. They just flip in their notebook. They have the cards there. And then at the end of the year, they have it all to study. Especially good for question words and basic things like that they can refer to.
Well, and in French, the question words are really long, too. That always throws people for a loop. They need some support with that one. And how do you design your curriculum with target language in mind?
I focus on communication. What are the key things that your students need to be able to say on a daily basis? And while I was raising my own kids, you see that they're common phrases that are repeated over and over and over and over again. So those are the ones they need to know. For example, instead of just teaching your students like, how are you? I'm fine. I'm not fine. Teach them how to say, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I have a lot of homework, I have to go to the bathroom, I'm grumpy. Teach them the things that we say all the time and build out from there. So whatever topic you're working on, think of what are the things that we say the most around that topic and teach them those and really focus on those.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm teaching my son Spanish too when I remember and when we're actually like in it, like on the weekends and I'm not teacher tired. But the stuff that he knows the best are the things that are the most relevant to him. Like, how do I get a spoon? Like, it's all about the food. It's all about the food for him right now.
Yes.
Those are the things that we talk about the most. And a light bulb hit for me that's what I do the most with him in Spanish, and that's what he talks about the most, and that's what he's the best at. So when we're making our curriculums, that's what we need to be focusing on too. What are the classroom phrases? What are the things that kids want to say? And how can we adjust that to make sure that they're able to say what they want to say? I had to miss a week of school like 2 weeks ago because of Hurricane Dorian. So I taught all my kids when they came in for their weekend chat, like you were talking about. I taught them all how to say, I stayed home. I evacuated. Like, there's stuff in my yard. That's what I taught them how to say. So
Right.
designing our curriculum with what kids want to say in mind. Do you have any, following that up, last question, do you have any suggestions for teachers who might not have a lot of wiggle room? What are little ways that they can look at their curriculums to put more communication in there?
That's a tricky question.
Because I know I've had curriculums before where, like, I've had set units. Like, how can you add communication to something like, I know I've got to talk about food. I know I've got to talk about restaurants. What are some ways that we can add more communication in there if I know I've got to teach this subject, but I want to use more communication?
Right. And I was in that situation recently because I had Spanish 3s who were basically at a Spanish 1 level, and they were trying to learn random transportation vocabulary and tricky stuff that was way above their ability to speak.
The tears. Like, we've all been there.
It was very frustrating.
Very frustrating. We've all
very
been
frustrating. Yeah. But I just tried to include the most useful phrases. And I know what I did too. That was fun. I wrote a story, a crazy story, TPR story about Maria and Juan, and they were driving in New York City, and Juan was texting on his phone, and Maria was his girlfriend, and she was trying to talk to him, and he had to swerve because there was a car coming, and he wasn't paying attention. And then she found out he had 5 girlfriends, and he was texting another girlfriend. So, and then he crashed into a fountain that had ducks in it. Then the police came and they were acting it out. So that was really fun, just to like make a silly story around the random vocabulary.
Yes, exactly. Well, this has been perfect. I'm sure teachers of all walks of experience and whatever familiarity they have with using target language and comprehensible input, they're going to have so much stuff to work with. What resources do you have for them? Because I know you've got so much. There's so much on your blog for people who want to use more immersion style tactics. What do you have for them that they can use?
I have something really good for you guys.
Yay!
I have a free resource library on my blog, and you can go and you just input your email, and then you have access to it. And I keep adding more and more resources to it. Right now it has probably 20, 25 free resources in it. It has classroom signs that say like, can I go to the bathroom? How do you say? Different things like that. I have some digital flashcards in there that I just started making. They're really fun. They're on Boom Learning. So you can get those in the free resource library, and just lots of fun things to explore in there.
Perfect. Oh, people have so much good stuff to look forward to. Mil gracias. Thank you so much. There's so much good stuff in here. Merci mille fois. Yay.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.